Welcome to Starbound. My name is Carol, and I'll be your narrator for today. Almost 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Freyrin and Rimiki, which I'm currently the narrator for. If you're interested in joining, you can go ahead and click that Join Now button to help us continue putting out new series and episodes. With that, we'll get on to today's story. The cargo hold of the stellar survey vessel Helix reeks of ozone and fear sweat. Lyrie wedges herself deeper between two supply crates, chromatophores, rippling in nauseating waves of amber and gray as the ship shudders through atmospheric entry. She shouldn't be here. The thought pounds through her head in rhythm with her secondary heart. She shouldn't be here, but the alternative, another year of combat simulations and theoretical xenobiology while her parents explored impossible worlds, had been unbearable. The stolen data pad floats before her, its holographic display casting pale light across her angular features. Earth. Death world. The classification burns into her retinas. Biosphere categorized as impossible. Organic toxicity levels exceed survivable parameters for 97.3% of known sapient species. Contains 20% oxygen and 78% nitrogen. Quarantine protocols in effect. Survey authorized under extreme containment conditions. Impossible. On Velkus, that word meant theoretical. Here, cramped between crates of scientific equipment, while alarms shriek through frequencies that make her pointed ears fold flat against her skull, it tastes like prophecy. Structural integrity compromised, the ship's AI announces, with artificial calm. Mass distribution error detected. Emergency separation protocols engaged. Mass distribution. Her additional 70 kilograms, carefully hidden from pre-flight scans. Such a small number to doom them all. Through the hold's porthole, she watches her parents' section spiral away, their faces appearing on an emergency display. Dr. Keelan's chromatophores explode in fractals of pure terror. Dr. Visar's mouth moves, forming words the failing communication system can't carry. Their daughter's name, probably. Their brilliant, stupid daughter, who wanted to prove that she was more than just another apex predator's offspring. The impact comes in 3 movements. The horizon tilting wrong, the crates breaking free from their magnetic constraints, and then nothing but red. Red sand, red sky, red streaming from a gash in her temple where the emergency webbing failed. Lyrie pulls herself from the wreckage of Escape Pod 3, her enhanced muscles screaming protest in gravity that pulls harder than home. The pod's transparent aluminum walls spiderweb with cracks, systems failing and cascading error messages all across her retinal display. Her adaptive camouflage, pride of Velkari evolution, sparks and fails, leaving her skin cycling through random patterns like a broken display. Outside, the landscape stretches in shades of rust and ochre, sparse vegetation clinging to life beneath a sun that burns wrong. Smaller than Velkus's binary pair, but somehow angrier. Radiation spiking through spectrums her people learn to avoid. The air tastes of iron. She keys the emergency beacon with shaking fingers. Static. The electromagnetic pulse from entry fried half her systems. The other half die one by one. Displays dimming as Earth's atmosphere corrodes circuits designed for gentler worlds. 43 degrees Celsius. Her suit's final gift before thermal regulation fails. On Velkus, the polar regions never exceeded 30. Here, at what the corrupted navigation system claims is early morning, the heat already presses against her like a living thing. She is alone. Apex predator of 12 worlds, heir to a legacy of biological superiority, and she is utterly, completely alone. The billabong holds their mother's ashes like dark tea steeping in still water. Ethan watches the last motes disappear, carried by currents too subtle for eyes that didn't grow up reading this land. Beside him, Mira whispers in language. Not the English they use in town or the textbook Aboriginal phrases taught in schools, but the real words their grandmother passed down before the cancer took her. Words for goodbye that carry the weight of 6,000 years. "She's really gone," Mira says, switching back to English, her 15-year-old voice steady, despite the tears cutting tracks through the red dust on her cheeks. "Yeah." Ethan shoulders the pack containing their camping gear, their mother's medical kit still heavy inside. 3 years she carried it through the bush, saving lives with whatever land provided. Snakebite victims, car accident survivors, tourists who thought the outback was just another hiking trail. Can't bring himself to remove it. Some habits die harder than mothers. "Remember when she delivered the Morrison's baby out here?" Mira asks, kneeling to wash her hands in the sacred water. "No hospital for 300 Ks. Storm coming in and she just..." The sonic boom cracks across the dawn sky like the world breaking open. 3 fiery trails arc overhead, too controlled for meteors, too fast for any aircraft Ethan knows. One trajectory carries it over the horizon toward the Simpson Desert. 2 others... "Ethan," Mira points to the smoke plume rising maybe 10 kilometers east, black against the lightning sky. "Someone might need help." "Not our problem." His mother's voice echoes across 3 years of grief. "You help people, Ethan. That's what we do. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's how we honor the ones who came before." "She would go," Mira says simply, already checking the medical kit's contents. Damn his sister for being right. Always the brave one, even when wisdom says run. Just like their mother. Just like the grandmother who once walked these same paths, teaching them which plants heal and which ones kill. They track through spinifex grass that grabs at their clothes with tiny hooks evolution designed for survival, not comfort. Every step deliberate. Death adder country, his grandmother warned. Though she'd use the old world that meant stone that bites. The smoke thickens, acrid with burning metals that don't belong to this ancient land. "Meteorite?" Mira suggests, but her voice carries doubt. "Since when do meteorites fly like that?" The crater tells its own story. Too perfect, too shallow. Impact calculated to preserve rather than destroy. The pod sits half buried in red sand, walls of some clear material Ethan doesn't recognize, spiderwebbed with damage. Through the cracks, movement. Not human movement. Too fluid. Joints bending at angles that make his hindbrain scream warnings, passed down from ancestors who learned to fear things that moved wrong. His hand drops to the knife on his belt. His father's knife. The one that didn't save him from the Eastern Brown that came out of nowhere 3 years back. Same day they lost him, they nearly lost Ethan too. Would have, if his mother hadn't known which antivenom to use. Hadn't driven like a demon through the night to reach flying doctors. The figure inside pounds against the failing hatch with fists that leave dents in metal. Desperate. Afraid. The molecular composition flashes across her dying displays. H2O. Same as 100 worlds. But here, in this heat, it might as well be liquid life. Lyrie draws herself to full height. Chromatophores firing in patterns that would send most species into immediate submission. Deep crimson edges bleeding into black, the threat display of an apex predator backed into a corner. Her lips pull back just enough to reveal the extended canines that mark her species as carnivores, hunters, things that belong at the top of food chains. The male doesn't flinch, doesn't retreat, just watches with eyes the color of Earth's impossible sky, reading her like she's a problem to solve, rather than a threat to flee from. His hand stays near the knife, but doesn't draw it. Patience. Evaluation. The look of someone who's faced predators before and lived. The female, Mira, she hears the male call her, extends the water again. Slow movements. Non-threatening, the same way Lyrie's xenobiology professors demonstrated approaching uncontacted species. Except here, she's the uncontacted one. The heat slams into her like a physical wall. Velkus never exceeds 30 degrees in the temperate zones, 25 in the civilized regions. Here, her damaged systems scream warnings about temperatures that shouldn't exist on a habitable world. 43 degrees and climbing as the sun lifts higher. Her enhanced metabolism, designed to burn hot for burst speed hunting, begins consuming itself. Black spots crowd her vision like swarming insects. The female makes soft sounds, nonsense syllables that somehow convey safety. The ground rises to meet her, red sand soft as cremation ash. Pride tastes like copper, and failure, as Lyrie collapses into alien arms. She's burning up! Mira's hands work with steady confidence, checking pulse points that aren't where human anatomy suggests they should be. The alien skin ripples with colors like an octopus in distress, fear washing transparent across her limbs, pain blooming in deep purple bruises. Something else Mira can't read, flickering gold and green. Leave her. But Ethan's already pulling out their mother's kit, muscle memory overriding judgment. Bandages designed for human bodies, antiseptic that might be poison to alien biochemistry, emergency supplies calculated for a 3-day memorial trip that now need to stretch further. The alien's eyes snap open, not all at once, but in stages. Inner eyelids retracting to reveal irises that fracture light like amber caught in spiderwebs. Intelligence burns there, trapped behind a language neither side speaks. The translator collar around her neck sparks once, twice, then dies, with the smell of burning circuits. Great, Ethan mutters. No phone home. Lyrie's stomach clenches with hunger deeper than she's ever known. On Velkus, meals come regulated, calculated to maintain optimal hunting weight. Here, her body screams for fuel it's burning too fast to replace. She raises a shaking hand, mimes eating with gestures that feel infantile, holds up 5 fingers, points to herself, then her stomach. 5? Mira glances at their single pack of supplies. 5 what? Lyrie repeats the gesture, more urgently. 5. Multiplier. She needs 5 times what they'd eat. Understanding dawns on Ethan's face, followed by something harder. He looks at their supplies. Energy bars, dried fruit, a few tins of meat, meant to last 3 days for 2 people. Does the calculation and finds it wanting. One day, he says to Mira, voice flat, if she needs 5 times what we do, we have 1 day of food for 3 people. Then we hunt, Mira said simply. With what? You planning to throw the medical kit at a But even as he argues, Ethan's mind races through options. Euro in the hills, his grandmother's secret spot, fish in the billabong if they can find one without crocs, witchetty grubs if they get desperate. The land provides, grandmother always said, but it doesn't give charity. Night in the outback arrives like a door slamming shut. No twilight, no gradual fade. Just sun, then stars, then cold. That makes Lyrie shiver despite her elevated body temperature. Her thermal vision, such an advantage on other worlds, becomes overwhelming. Every cold-blooded creature lights up in her spectrum like Christmas decorations from hell. Carpet python coiled in the bloodwood above, body heat diffused, but movement patterns clear. Death adder buried 2 meters away, only the faintest warmth revealing its presence. Something large and multi-legged scuttling through the spinifex. Too many joints moving in directions that offended geometry. Christ, Ethan breathes, watching her head track threats they can't see. How many? She doesn't need to speak his language to understand. Holds up fingers, runs out of digits, shakes her head. Everywhere. They're everywhere. Ethan builds the fire with movements so practiced they seem encoded in his DNA. No technology beyond knife striking stone, handful of dry grass. Patience of someone who learned young that fire means survival. The flames leap up, creating a circle of safety and light that makes Lyrie's enhanced senses finally, blessedly relax. Better? Mira asks, noting how the alien's shoulders drop from around her ears. Lyrie nods, a gesture that apparently translates. The fire pushes back the dark, keeps the cold-blooded threats at bay. On Velkus they use force fields, energy barriers, technology to separate civilization from nature. Here, humans use controlled combustion. The elegance of it strikes her as her body stops shaking. Mira watches with scientific fascination, as emotions trigger color changes across Lyrie's exposed skin. Fear makes transparency, veins visible beneath skin gone clear as water. Anger brings up deep red, black edges like warnings. And something else. When Ethan passes close to tend to the fire, her chromatophores shift toward human pink, unconscious mimicry of the pack she's found herself in. Look, Mira whispers to her brother. She's trying to fit in. She's a predator, Ethan corrects, but his voice carries less conviction than before. So are we. Mira gestures to the knife, the fire, the calculations of survival. Just different kinds. The first hunt teaches Lyrie humility in ways no classroom ever could. Dawn finds them tracking through scrub that looks identical to hers, but reads like a book to Ethan. He points to subtle signs. Grass bent just so. Pellets dry but not ancient. Scratches on a tree trunk where something scraped. The kangaroo watches from 100 meters away, ears swiveling like radar dishes. On Velkus, prey animals are slow, stupid things. Generations of selected breeding for being hunted by superior predators left them docile. Easy calories for those fast enough to catch them. Lyrie's muscles coil. Genetic memory of 1,000 successful hunts flooding her system. She explodes from cover, hitting speeds that blur the landscape into red streamers. The kangaroo turns with casual interest. Then it moves. Evolution on Earth, Lyrie learns in one painful instant, doesn't create victims. The massive haunches uncoil like biological springs, launching the creature in an arc her trajectory can't match. She tries to adjust, gravity and momentum disagreeing. The kit catches her center mass with force designed by millions of years of natural selection to shatter dingo rib cages and discourage eagles. The world inverts. Sky becomes ground, becomes sky, becomes pain. Ribs crack like brittle wood. Punctuation marks in a sentence about hubris. She lands hard. Red sand filling her mouth with the taste of geological time and her own stupidity. Ethan appears above her, not running but walking with the steady ground-eating pace that humans use to persistence hunt across continents. He helps her sit, checking injuries with hands that know damage from experience. No mockery in his expression, just assessment, and something that might be sympathy. He points to the tracks again, shows her scat patterns, explains through gesture and demonstration what she missed. Persistence, not speed. Knowledge, not strength. Track for hours, walk them down. Wait for heat and exhaustion to do what bursts of speed can't. "Slowly," he says. One of few English words she's beginning to understand. Everything slowly. 3 hours later, working together, they bring down an older male already limping from some previous encounter. Ethan's knife ends it quickly, respectfully. Lyrie watches him thank the animal in words she doesn't know, but tones she understands. On Velkus, prey is resource. Here, even food deserves gratitude. But the successful hunt brings its own problems. As they prepare to field dress the carcass, Ethan freezes, points to a muddy depression half hidden by a pandanus. Water buffalo wallow, though Lyrie doesn't know the words, just sees his fear, sudden and sharp. She starts forward, desperate to cool her overheating systems in the murky water. Ethan's hand locks on her arm with strength that surprises her. He points to the slide marks in the mud, debris patterns around the edge. A log that isn't. The saltwater crocodile erupts from the murky water like a nightmare-given mass. 4 meters of apex predator, perfectly designed for one thing: killing whatever enters its domain. Time dilates the way it does in combat. Lyrie sees the crocodile's trajectory, calculates angles, knows with sick certainty it's aimed at Ethan. He'd pushed her clear, used his smaller mass to redirect hers, and now physics demands payment. Her enhanced reflexes take over. Valkyrie muscles, designed for burst hunting on low-gravity worlds, scream in protest as she intercepts something that outweighs her by factors. Her hands lock onto the massive head, feeling scales like armor plates, muscles like steel cables beginning their work. The death roll. She'd read about it in xenobiology texts, Earth predators that use rotational force to disorient and drown. Theory becomes practice as the world spins. Her shoulder separates with a wet pop that sends lightning through her nervous system. Teeth designed for gripping, not cutting, punch through her suit's supposedly puncture-proof material, and find flesh beneath. But she holds long enough for Ethan to scramble clear, to grab a burning branch from their fire and thrust it at the crocodile's eyes. The beast releases her, vanishing back into murky water with barely a ripple. Apex predator returning to its element. Point made. Lyrie collapses on the bank, her camouflage system failing entirely. Purple blood, copper-based, not iron like the humans, streams from puncture wounds and perfect dental impressions. The pain comes in waves, each heartbeat pushing out more of her life into the Australian sand. "Ah, shit! Shit! Shit!" Ethan's usual calm cracks as he presses torn fabric against wounds that won't stop bleeding. But Mira steps forward with their mother's steadiness, analyzing the damage with eyes that have seen worse. She sends Ethan for specific plants. Paper bark for its antiseptic properties, clean clay from the bank, spider silk if he can find it without getting bitten. "Different blood," Mira mutters, watching the purple oxidize to green. "Copper-based? Like horseshoe crabs?" Lyrie nods weakly, impressed despite the pain. This juvenile human recognizes hemocyanin versus hemoglobin from color alone. Perhaps Earth breeds all its creatures sharp. The treatment hurts worse than the wounds. Paperbark tea stings in ways her body has no reference for, while clay draws out heat and infection with primitive efficiency. But it works. The bleeding slows, stops, scabs with green crust that Mira doesn't touch further. "Hero," Ethan says finally, breaking his characteristic silence. The word means nothing to Lyrie, but his gesture toward rocky hills carries meaning. A secret place. His grandmother's gift, shared now out of necessity. Or perhaps something more. Trust, Lyrie realizes. He's offering trust. The Euro falls to coordinated effort that feels like dance. Ethan tracking, reading signs in sand and stone. Lyrie's speed once the animal is cornered in a box canyon with no spring-loaded escape. Mira preparing the cooking fire with specific woods that won't poison the meat with their smoke. The meal tastes like survival itself. Protein her body desperately needs, cooked over open flame instead of processed into sterile nutrition blocks. Fat rendering, meat charring slightly at the edges. Flavors her enhanced palate has never encountered. On Velkus, food is fuel. Here, it's sacrament. But success brings new problems. As full dark falls, eyes reflect their firelight from beyond the circle of safety. Dingoes. Ethan names them with gestures and thrown stones. Lyrie counts 8 distinct heat signatures, watches pack dynamics that mirror her own species' coordinated hunting. These aren't the stupid prey animals of her homeworld. Intelligence flows between them, in yips and body language, testing for weakness, evaluating opportunity. The pack splits, some circling left, others right. Classic flanking maneuver any Valkyrie military instructor would approve. She rises, chromatophores shifting to full threat display. Deep crimson spreading like blood, black edges that suggest death, size emphasized by extended limbs and raised shoulders. On Velkus, lesser predators flee from superior ones. Hierarchy is absolute, encoded in genetics, and reinforced by generations of dominance. The lead dingo tilts its head, studying her with amber eyes that hold no fear, no recognition, no submission. It yips once, a sound that might be laughter or might be a signal. The pack continues circling. "Down," Ethan says quietly, hand on her uninjured shoulder. Not a command, but advice. He steps forward with quiet authority that needs no display. No threats, no dominance posturing. Just a fire-hardened stick in one hand, and stones placed with strategic precision in the other. He shows her through action what human ancestors learned when they lacked claws and fangs. Tools, and intelligence, and patience. A stone clips the lead dingo's shoulder. Not hard enough to injure, just enough to communicate. The stick swings in controlled arcs, defining space that's theirs. Mira tends to the fire, building it higher, brighter, light and heat and human cleverness against teeth and coordination. Together, they drive the pack back, not through superior strength, but through superior strategy, through being something the dingoes can't quite categorize. The lesson burns deeper than her injured shoulder. Earth's predators don't respect off-world hierarchies. They respect what works. The dingoes retreat but don't go far. Lyrie can see their heat signatures settling just beyond the firelight. Watching. Waiting. Patient in ways that make her enhanced metabolism seem like a liability rather than advantage. Water becomes critical as they track toward the crash coordinates her dying equipment barely provides. The heat builds each day, sucking moisture from bodies designed for gentler worlds. Every billabong they find, Ethan checks first with sticks and stones, and sometimes just intuition. The third one looks perfect. Clear water reflecting cloudless sky. Pandanus providing shade, rocks for filtering. Lyrie starts forward, desperate enough to ignore the warning tinge in her shoulder, but Ethan's hand stops her again. Gentle but firm. He takes a long stick, stirs the shallows with movement that speak of practiced caution. The water explodes with movement. Tiny jellyfish, nearly invisible, pulse in the disturbed liquid, each no bigger than Lyrie's smallest finger joint, transparent as glass, trailing tentacles like deadly thread. "Iru Kanji," Ethan says, the word careful and precise. Points to scars on his arms she hadn't noticed before. "Stung when I was 12. Hospital for a week. Nearly died. Her enhanced vision, able to track movement across kilometers, to see in spectrums humans can't imagine, couldn't detect death floating centimeters away. They walk extra miles for safer water, while exhaustion mounts like compound interest. Every advantage she thought she had becomes another way to die. The emergency beacon from her pod should help. She shows it to Ethan, mimes calling for help. He shakes his head urgently, but she's too desperate to listen. Activates it against his pantomimed warnings. Within minutes, a wedge-tailed eagle circles overhead, magnificent wingspan casting shadows. But its interest isn't casual. The electromagnetic signature draws it like prey. From the rocks, more movement. Scales sliding over stone, with purpose that makes Ethan grab both girls and pull them back. The inland taipan emerges like liquid death given form. 2 meters of scales, the color of dry grass. Head lifting to taste air with forked tongue. Most venomous land snake on Earth. Though Lyrie doesn't need Ethan's frantic gestures to understand danger. Every line of the creature speaks apex predator in languages that predate words. It investigates the beacon with interest, drawn by electromagnetic fields its pit organs interpret as heat. Lyrie watches her last piece of functional technology become a liability, drawing death instead of rescue. The beacon joins other failed advantages in the sand.
Tech,
Ethan says, shaking his head.
Not here. Land doesn't like it.
As if to emphasize his point, the solar cells on her suit finally fail completely, the last system keeping her temperature regulated dying with a small puff of smoke. She's truly naked now, dependent entirely on human charity and Earth's merciless education. The Willy Willy catches them crossing a salt flat, red dust spiraling into a column that blocks the sun. They huddle together in a depression, barely deep enough to matter. No hierarchy here. Just 3 teenagers trying not to be sandblasted into component atoms. Mira draws in the dirt as they wait. Stick figures that tell stories. A woman lying still. Others standing around. Water rising. Her mother, gone trying to save others in a flash flood that came too fast. The guilt in simple lines. Mira safe on high ground, watching her mother go back for one more patient. Ethan adds his own drawing. Snake, curved like death. Man falling. Boy standing frozen. His father, trying to protect him from the brown snake that came from nowhere. The paralysis of watching someone you love die while your feet won't move, hands won't work, knowledge won't come fast enough. Lyrie understands. Her holographic locket survived when everything else failed, showing parents, young and proud with infant her. She mimes her own story, sneaking aboard against orders, wanting to prove herself worthy of the family name. The crash, the separation, the fear that she's killed them with her pride. Common ground builds from shared loss. When the storm passes, they're lost. Landmarks erased by wind and time. But they're lost together. And somehow, that makes it bearable. Family, Mira says, gesturing to all 3 of them. The word needs no translation. They smell the waterhole before they see it. Mineral-rich scent that promises relief. But as they approach through scattered eucalyptus, something massive shifts in the shadows. Black feathers catch the light like oil. A blue-black head turns on a neck designed for striking, and Lyrie finds herself facing something from Velkas's fossil record. The cassowary stands 2 meters tall, casque like a battering ram, evolution designed for crushing through undergrowth, or skulls, with equal efficiency. 3-toed feet sport claws that could disembowel with a kick. But it's the eyes that stop her cold. Intelligent, evaluating, unimpressed by mammalian posturing. Ethan goes still. Not the stillness of stalking, but of genuine terror. This thing scares him more than crocodiles, than snakes, than dingoes. His hand finds Mira's, protective instinct overriding everything else. The cassowary spreads stunted wings, head lowering. Threat display that needs no translation. Deep booming from its chest, so low Lyrie feels it in her bones. Her chromatophores respond automatically, flaring to full threat configuration before she can stop them. Wrong move. The cassowary takes it as challenge, stepping forward with deliberate intent. Those claws dig furrows, an earth baked hard as stone.
Back,
Ethan whispers.
Slowly. Don't run.
They work together without words. Mira creates distraction, tossing her water bottle to the left. The cassowary's head tracks the movement. Ethan guides their retreat, step by careful step. Lyrie uses her camouflage not for dominance but for misdirection, letting her colors shift to match the trees, breaking up her outline. The cassowary lets them leave. Point made. Territory defended. Even flightless birds can be apex predators on Earth, where evolution doesn't play favorites. Her chromatophores have stopped trying to display Valkyrie patterns. Now, they mirror human skin tones with conscious thought. Rose pink when exertion heats her, tan where sun has touched, pale where clothes protect. Unconscious acceptance of new pack dynamics. Biology choosing survival over superiority. The debris field stretches across salt flats like mechanical bones under the desert sun. Twisted metal and composite materials scatter in patterns that tell stories of impact and separation. But Ethan stops at the border, finally explaining through elaborate gesture what makes him hesitate. Feral pigs. He draws them in the sand. Bristled backs, curved tusks, intelligent eyes. Shows how they came. Escaped domestic stock gone wild. Spreads his hand to indicate generations, evolution and fast forward. Points to tracks in the dust. Massive hooves that speak of size no farm animal achieves. They find evidence before they find the pigs. A cassowary carcass, torn apart with systematic violence that makes Lyrie's enhanced combat training recoil. Not just killed, but processed. Bones cracked for marrow with tools, rocks used as hammers. These aren't animals, but strategic thinkers, with generational memory of human hunting and animal cunning combined. Reaching her parents' crash site requires every lesson the Outback has beaten into her. Wind patterns to mask scent. Ethan shows her how thermals carry information to prey that's become predator. Patient movement that costs calories she can barely spare. Her camouflage finally useful when combined with human tactics, rather than replacing them. They find drag marks first. Parallel grooves through sand, leading to a cluster of ghost gums, providing shade. Hope and fear war in Lyrie's chest as she recognizes Valkyrie emergency protocol. Create shelter, establish perimeter, await rescue that isn't coming. The reunion breaks her heart in ways Lyrie didn't expect. Both of them, primary and secondary, seeming to crack as she sees what she's done. Her mother lies twisted in emergency webbing, leg bent at angles that make Mira inhale sharply. Dr. Kalan's chromatophores cycle through pain responses. Deep purple shot through with sick yellow. Patterns Lyrie remembers from childhood injuries, but magnified beyond endurance. Her breathing becomes shallow, careful, speaking of damage inside where even Valkyrie medicine would struggle. Her father kneels beside failing equipment, frantically trying to repair quantum processors with tools designed for space, not Earth. Dr. Visar's perfect patterns, always so controlled, fragment into static. His hands shake as he works, accomplishing nothing but unable to stop. They look up at their daughter, suit torn and stained with her own green blood, scarred by Earth's lessons, flanked by humans like some feral thing, and see failure. Their failure, Her failure. The failure of every assumption they'd built their superiority on. Lyrie? Her mother's voice comes weak, threaded with pain suppressors that are running out. How? Leave, her father commands in Valkyrie, not looking up from his useless work. Contamination protocols must be maintained. These primitives... No! The word comes out in English, surprising everyone, including Lyrie. She stands between her parents and the humans who saved her, chromatophores solid with decision, patterns that brook no argument. They saved me. They can save you. We don't need... You're dying! Lyrie cuts him off, something she's never done. Mother has internal bleeding. Your medikit is fried. The beacon might bring rescue in days if it works, hours if we're lucky. She doesn't have hours. Mira steps forward, medical kit in steady hands. No words needed. Competence transcends species. She kneels beside Dr. Kalan with the same calm she showed treating Lyrie, assessing damage with eyes, trained by necessity rather than universities. Broken femur or analog, she says to Ethan. Possible internal bleeding. Needs surgery. Flying doctors? Ethan suggests. If we can signal them. Dr. Visar watches primitives discuss saving his mate's life with technology they shouldn't have, knowledge that shouldn't exist on a death world like this. His worldview cracks. Night brings fever to Dr. Kalan's broken body. The makeshift splint holds bone in place, but can't stop whatever bleeds inside. Mira does what she can. IV fluids from their emergency supplies. Antibiotics that might help or might poison alien biology. Constant monitoring of vitals that don't match any human baseline. The beacon, Dr. Visar says desperately. We could activate the emergency pulse. Full power. Valkyrie rescue would quarantine Earth, Lyrie finishes. Full contamination protocols. No contact for 100 years minimum. Billions of lives. For 3. Her father's patterns fragment further. The mathematics of survival forcing impossible choices. On Velkus, the equation is simple. Preserve superior specimens at any cost. Here, watching humans spend precious resources on aliens who called them primitive, the math becomes complex. Ethan builds a different fire, not for warmth or protection, but for communication. Specific patterns Lyrie watches him lair. Greenwood for smoke. Arrangement that speaks in languages older than technology. His grandmother's knowledge, he explains through gestures. Other humans might see. Might help. Might not. Why? Dr. Visar asks in broken English, the word pulled from translation files rather than understanding. Why? Help. Ethan looks at him with eyes that have seen too much for 17 years, and sighs. Because that's what you do. Someone needs help. You help. Otherwise, what's the point? The smoke rises in patterns that speak to those who know how to read them. Ancient communication that predates radios, satellites, quantum entanglement. Human cleverness that doesn't require power cells or processors. Lyrie translates haltingly between her parents and the siblings, her vocabulary growing with each exchange. Technical terms give way to simpler truths. Pain, fear, hope. The universal languages that don't need words. They come at dawn, as Ethan predicted they might. The matriarch leads, scarred from decades of survival, one tusk broken, eyes that hold generational memory of humans who hunt and humans who feed. Behind her, the sounder spreads out in formation that would impress Valkyrie tactical instructors. Feral pigs. Mistakes given flesh, and fury, and intelligence to use both. They test the camp's perimeter with coordinated probes. Juveniles dart forward, retreat, report back in grunts and body language. The matriarch processes information with patience Lyri's enhanced metabolism can't match. These aren't raiders, but strategists, evaluating cost versus benefit. Ethan takes charge without ceremony, positions assigned through gesture. Mira to tend to the fire and Dr. Kalan, Lyri to his left, where her strength can cover his weakness. Even Dr. Visar, given a burning branch and pointed to defensive position.
They think,
Ethan explains in simple English.
Remember. Learn. We need to be not worth it.
Fire forms their first defense. Not just light and heat, but psychological warfare. Humans are the only animals that voluntarily play with fire. Noise comes next. Metal on metal. Shouts in languages the pigs associate with danger. But the matriarch remembers humans who ran. Humans who failed. Humans who became meat. She charges not at the defenders, but at their weakest point. The shelter, where Dr. Kalan lies helpless. Lyri moves with speed Earth's gravity fights but cannot stop. Her injured shoulder screams protest as she intercepts 300 kilograms of muscle and malice. They collide with force that shakes Ghost Gum leaves, but her Velkari strength holds. Barely. The matriarch's eyes meet hers, intelligence recognizing intelligence. Predator acknowledging predator. For a moment, they're locked in evolutionary stalemate. Then, Ethan's torch touches bristled hide, and the matriarch decides today's cost exceeds benefit. She retreats with dignity intact, Sounder following. Lesson taught on both sides. Survival isn't about winning. It's about living to fight another day.
Well done,
Dr. Visar says quietly, watching Primitives and his daughter work together. His perfect Velkari patterns have given way to something more complex. Respect, mixing with shame, understanding beginning to dawn. The Rangers arrive as the sun reaches zenith. Vehicles designed for impossible terrain growling over salt flats. They study the aliens with the mild interest of people who've seen stranger things in the outback. Min-min lights that follow cars. Yowies in the bush. Tourists who think they can walk to the next town.
Rough landing,
the senior ranger observes, taking the crash site in with practiced eyes.
Flying doctor's 20 minutes out. Your smoke signals were spot on, young fella.
They treat the aliens like any other crash victims. Efficiently, professionally, with the casual competence of people who make miracles from necessity. Aliens are a known element, if rare on Earth. Dr. Kalan gets stabilized with equipment that seems primitive but works. Plasma expanders adapted on the fly for copper-based blood. Field surgery that saves what Velkari technology couldn't.
Interesting biology,
the flying doctor comments, working on Dr. Kalan with steady hands.
But trauma is trauma. Bones are bones. We'll have you sorted.
Separation comes too soon. Government vehicles arrive with bureaucracy and protocols, quarantine and questions. Lyri presses her forehead to Ethan's, a Velkari gesture of deep respect. He accepts without explanation. Mira hugs her carefully, mindful of healing injuries and forming scars.
Thank you,
Lyri manages in English. 2 words, carrying the weight of survival.
You'll be back,
Mira says with teenager certainty.
This isn't goodbye.
Ethan says nothing, but his hand presses something into hers. His father's knife. Worn handle smooth from generations of use. She tries to refuse, but his eyes stop her. Not a gift, but a promise. She'll return it someday. 15 years later. The shuttle lands with grace born from invitation rather than disaster. Lyri emerges to red sand and memory, but she moves differently now, Valkyrie height balanced with human patience, strength tempered by wisdom earned in bruises. Her chromatophores tell stories in patterns that blend two worlds. Dot painting flows across her arms, song lines learned from elders who decided anyone who survived the Outback deserved to know its stories. Valkyrie military honors mixed with ranger certification, both earned through sweat and stubbornness. Ethan waits at the research station, laugh lines crinkling eyes that still track movement like the predator he is. 15 years have added muscle and scars, turned boy into man who trains others to survive. His hand still rests near a knife, not his father's, but one earned through his own trials. Their greeting is Valkyrie, forehead to forehead, sharing breath and warmth. But their words are English, Australian, something in between. "Still too hot," she replies, feeling 45 degrees like an old friend. "Still complaining," he replies. Their daughter plays in the shade, chromatophore shifting as she wrestles with human cousins. No fear between species, just children being children in the way only children can. She carries earth in her bones and stars in her blood, first of a new generation that sees no impossible boundaries. The new Valkyrie adaptation candidates arrive looking confident, apex predators from a dozen worlds, ready to conquer another. Lyrie remembers that pride, tastes it like copper memory. They'll learn. Earth is a patient teacher, but grades harshly. One candidate sneers at the briefing about primitive predators, as if on cue, something investigates the camp perimeter. 2 kilograms of pure attitude, silver gray fur, and snarling defiance. A honey badger, drawn by the smell of off-world arrogance. The candidate's threat display, magnificent by Valkyrie standards, earns what might be honey badger laughter. It charges, not despite the size difference, but because of it. Evolutionary middle finger to anything that thinks size means superiority. "Everything here evolves to kill," Lyrie tells them in Valkyrie, watching the candidate scramble onto a table while 2 kilos of fury owns the ground. "Which means everything evolved to survive. Respect that, or join the fossils." Her daughter tugs at her leg, pointing to the billabong where Ethan once scattered his mother's ashes. The same water where death floats invisible and life persists anyway. Wants to learn to swim where box jellies drift, track Euros through heat that kills, and understand why the cassowary is more dangerous than a Valkyrie warrior. "Tomorrow," Lyrie promises, teaches what Ethan taught her, what Earth taught them both, what their daughter will teach the universe. In the Outback, everything kills. So, everything lives, like every heartbeat is borrowed from death and paid back in wisdom. There's no higher apex than that. The honey badger, point made, ambles off to find something else to terrorize. The candidate remains on the table, chromatophores cycling through embarrassment and enlightenment. First lesson learned. Infinite more to come.